All right, let's talk about one of Shakespeare's absolute titans, King Lear. We're going to really get into the anatomy of this tragedy, kind of using this breakdown as our guide to one of the most powerful and, honestly, most devastating plays ever written.
So it all boils down to this. One really, really bad decision. A king decides to test his daughter's love for him, and that one choice, well, it's what sets off a chain reaction that completely destroys a kingdom. It's wild.
So we start with a kingdom divided. And yeah, the stage is totally set for disaster. Okay, so the play kicks off with King Lear. He's getting on in years, and he's got this plan that, on the surface, sounds kind of smart. He wants to retire and split up his kingdom now so there's no fighting over it when he's gone. Good idea, right? Well, it's how he does it that just blows up in his face.
And here it is, Lear's big plan. He's not going to divide it based on what's fair or who's next in line. Nope. He's going to turn it into a public spectacle, a competition to see which of his 3 daughters can say they love him the most. You can just feel the ego here, right? He's practically begging for flattery, and this need for validation, it's going to be his undoing.
So his 2 older daughters, Goneril and Regan, they totally get what's happening. They play the game perfectly. They just pour on the flattery, saying these ridiculously over-the-top things about how much they love him. But then there's Cordelia. She's the youngest, his favorite, and she just gives him honesty. She says she loves him like a daughter should. No more, no less. And Lear, he just can't handle it. He hears honesty and thinks it's rejection. A huge, tragic mistake.
And just like that, he snaps. In this massive fit of pure rage and wounded pride, Lear completely disowns Cordelia, banishes her right then and there, and he gives her share of the kingdom to the 2 daughters who just fed him a bunch of lies. And that quote, "I did her wrong," well, that realization is going to come back to haunt him, big time.
All right, section 2, 2 fathers, 2 mistakes, a story of parallel betrayals. Now this is where Shakespeare's writing is just pure genius. Because it's not just Lear making a terrible call, there's a whole other storyline, a parallel plot, where another father is making almost the exact same kind of devastating mistake.
Check this out. On one side, you've got King Lear, who rejects his honest daughter, Cordelia, and trusts the 2 who are just flattering him. And on the other side, the Earl of Gloucester. He gets totally duped by his illegitimate son, Edmund, into thinking his loyal son, Edgar, is plotting against him. So you've got 2 fathers, both completely blind to who's loyal and who's not, and both of them kick out the one kid they should have trusted. It's an incredible mirror image. So what's the big deal? Well, for Shakespeare's audience, this was a massive violation of something they called natural law. Think of it as the fundamental order of the universe. Kids are supposed to love and respect their parents. It's just the way things are. By breaking that bond, Lear and Gloucester aren't just messing up their families. They're basically punching a hole in the fabric of reality and letting all hell break loose.
And now, the unraveling begins, from king to castaway. Yeah, once that natural order is broken, everything just starts to fall apart. And guess who's front and center for the fallout? King Lear. He's about to get a very harsh lesson in the consequences of his own actions.
And it happens fast. The daughters he just gave everything to, they immediately start chipping away at his power. First, Goneril complains his knights are too rowdy and tells him to get rid of half of them. So Lear, furious, storms off to Regan's place, thinking she'll take his side. But nope, she's even worse. She teams up with her sister and demands he get rid of all of them. They are systematically stripping him of every last piece of his dignity and authority.
And just like that, he has nothing. He gave them the kingdom, the power, everything. And what does he get in return? He gets thrown out, banished by his own daughters, with only his fool to keep him company, right into the middle of a massive brewing storm. From king to homeless man in the blink of an eye.
Okay, this brings us to one of the most iconic scenes in all of theater, Madness in the Storm. The world is literally turned upside down. That violent storm raging outside, it's the perfect metaphor for the absolute tempest of grief and rage going on inside Lear's head, and also for the chaos that's tearing his kingdom apart. You know, earlier in the play, he actually begs not to go mad. It's his deepest fear. And now, it's happening. The combination of losing everything, the betrayal, the regret, it's all just too much. The weight of it all finally cracks his mind.
And this is the result. The king is lost. The kingdom is broken. It's a total breakdown of everything. The man who is supposed to be the pillar of reason and order is now wandering around insane, and the kingdom he was supposed to protect is just shattered.
Meanwhile, that parallel story we talked about, it hits its own horrifying climax. Gloucester gets caught trying to help Lear, and for his loyalty, well, Regan and her husband capture him, and they gouge his eyes out. It is one of the most brutal scenes Shakespeare ever wrote. And the irony is just staggering, right? The moment he is physically blinded is the exact moment he finally sees the truth about his sons.
So we head into the final act, a truly tragic conclusion. We're about to see the final, devastating cost of all these mistakes. And I mean catastrophe in the true sense of the word. It's just a downward spiral of violence and death that sucks everybody in.
And everything just collides at the end. Cordelia actually comes back with an army to try and save her dad, but they get captured. Meanwhile, the bad guys all turn on each other. Goneril and Regan both want Edmund, so Goneril poisons her sister. Then, the good son Edgar finally gets his revenge and mortally wounds Edmund in a duel. Goneril finds out she's been exposed and takes her own life. But just before he dies, Edmund confesses he's already ordered Lear and Cordelia to be executed. The whole thing is a mess.
They try to stop the execution order, but they're too late. And what happens next is maybe the single most painful, heartbreaking scene ever written. Lear walks on stage carrying Cordelia's body, his one good, true, honest daughter murdered for nothing. And seeing her dead, it's just too much. The grief literally breaks his heart, and he dies right there beside her.
So after all that pain and suffering, what is justice? The play doesn't give you an easy answer. There's no good guys win moment. You're just left with a stage full of dead bodies and this huge, unsettling question. It forces you to ask, what does justice even mean in a world where people can suffer so much, so senselessly? And honestly, that's a question we're still grappling